Scientific researchers are constantly seeking the truth. For centuries, they've fought against the oppressive restrictions of religious zealots to make exciting new discoveries about our human origins. Paleontologists are getting closer and closer to finding the missing links in the human evolutionary chain. Professor Roth Kinderman is a revolutionary in the field of evolutionary science. His groundbreaking discoveries might finally give us some crucial answers.
Attempting to communicate some of the latest evolutionary findings is extremely challenging. For starters, the species-defining paradigm shift that our ancestors experienced within what seems to be a single generation is really difficult to comprehend today. To be literal monkeys one second, and then walking, talking, clothing, wearing human beings the next, is just wow. So now, as the inheritors of the title human beings, we really can't imagine what it must have been like to be a great ape. It's like playing through 3 Skyrim campaigns as a warrior class, and someone asks you, so what's it like clearing a vampire's cave as a level 18 mage? It's like, what? And so on top of this, it's literally impossible to look back in time to around 8 or 12 million years ago and attempt to figure out what actually happened to our ancestors. Literally impossible. But what we now know from paleontological research and ice core isotope studies is that various tribes of the ancient ape species that roamed the earth between 8 and 12 million years ago all came together for a conference of sorts. We're talking about the kind of ape congregation that probably only happened maybe every 10, 20 years. It would have been quite the sight to see. Anyway, at this meeting of the great ape tribes, a discerning young chimp named Thuckben set out to convince his peers of a very important revelation, that eating our own feces, which as we all know our ancestors did every single day, was not only unnecessary, but also it was potentially holding back apes from evolutionary success.
Using radiocarbon dating techniques and spectral analysis of cave art, which is known to be over 8 million years old, archaeologists now believe that Thuckben, Prince of the Monkeys, was the first human ancestor to refuse to eat his own shit. What's more, the new practice seems to have caught on.
The scat rejection theory of human evolution, as it's known. Our recent findings have totally disrupted all thought and discourse on human evolution. 40 or 50 years ago, archaeologists were talking about the creation of fire, the invention of the wheel, harnessing stone tools, followed by more advanced metallurgical and alchemical techniques. Magic. Now we're forced to accept a new hypothesis because the evidence is just astronomical. Thuckben stopped eating poop. He stopped eating poop and expelled the worms.
It's believed that Thuckben ceased partaking in an activity that was ubiquitous among the great apes. Instead of packing fresh feces in his mouth like a tobacco hog, Thuckben began experimenting with alternatives, eventually stumbling on an unknown mixture that caused him to expel a 6-foot-long parasite from his bowels.
Now, this idea was so simple that many scientists, colleagues of mine, were enraged. Denial was rife in our field for years. Occasionally, physical fights, actual physical fisticuff fights, broke out at conferences. We're all acting more like apes than we had maybe since Thuckben's time. Thuckben showed his ape brothers that by not bending down to feast on his own leavings, and instead chewing a mixture of herbs and resins, that they could experience a day and night shift in their mental and physical abilities. Thuckben was stronger, more virile, smarter. His semen stores and load volumes literally shocked his beleaguered brothers. He was at a loss to explain why, but the results were enough for his crazy new trend to catch on. And from that point onwards, you could argue, genus Homo was born.
With the tools of modern science at their disposal, archaeologists can now easily explain the very thing that bewildered Thuckben and his allies. By abstaining from consuming his own feces, Thuckben was, in fact, ridding himself of a harmful passenger that had plagued the great ape tribes for millions of years. Scientists now call it Thuckben's ribbon worm.
Thanks to the random act of Thuckben, by not eating his own poo, we're now blessed today with the evolutionary traits that we all experience. Recently in Mozambique, I discovered an archaeological site of great importance. We recovered some fossilized feces that we believe could be linked to Thuckben himself, or at least a direct ancestor. Scientists in the laboratory are able to extract the DNA of the worm species, the ribbon worm species, that infested Thuckben's colon.
Geneticists have been analysing the properties of Thuckben's ribbon worm. They have found that the parasitic species produces unique hormone compounds in mammalian hosts. Researchers believe that these hormones cause the host to be more docile, less masculine and violent. They likely dull the mental abilities and make the host easy to control. Pharmacologists are busily experimenting with these compounds, hoping to find medicinal applications for Thuckben's ribbon worm.
As an archaeologist, I find it fascinating that we've come so far as a species, and yet we could learn a little bit from our primitive brothers. I think we could all do with a reduction in our violence, an improvement in our docile nature, a lowering of our toxic masculinity, so to speak. At the end of the day, and as I know is the motto of this program, science matters.